Hi, it's Christopher Grubb. We're at the Merchandise Mart in Chicago, Illinois in the Pella showroom. I am with a friend. This is Wayne Johnson. For if you're local, you'll recognize Wayne from Wayne's Weekend. He was on 10 years on NBC. Entertaining, he's a chef, he still has a ton of followers. I'm bragging about you that way.
I know, I appreciate that, thank you.
You're welcome. And we share a passion for architecture.
Absolutely.
You are a docent at the Robie House.
I am. I've been a docent for about 6 years, and the Robie House is right now in the middle of a great restoration effort, which we're excited about. But the house was designed in 1908. It's an awesome house. It's the best example of prairie-style architecture of Mr. Wright's career. And his career spanned many, many years. But this period, 1900s, 1910, was a great prairie-style period. And the Robie House is a great example of it. Wonderful space.
Well, and Frank Lloyd Wright is, the preeminent architect recognized for the 20th century. So,
absolutely.
One thing for house tips, I want to talk about urban living, and we have Frank Lloyd Wright, who has the prairie-style.
Right.
And then one thing I noticed with urban living is a building that stands out for me that I like is Marina City.
Marina City's great, right. And you know what's funny, Marina City was built between 1959 and 1967, and the architect was Bertram Goldberg. And he had a real concern about people moving out to the suburbs, that whole sort of flight away from the city.
Right.
And he wanted to build a complex that not only brought people back into the city, but sort of accomplished all the things people would be looking for out in the suburbs. So there's a marina, there's a movie theater, there's an office building, and then there's two wonderful towers. And he likened those towers to trees. He basically said the core was the trunk of the tree, the platters were like the branches, and the little balconies were like the leaves. So,
I didn't know that. Yeah. I think because the nickname is the corncob buildings,
right,
that it gets called.
Right.
And another thing that's been amazing here, the architecture. It's one of my favorite cities. You could just walk for hours and stare at buildings.
Right.
Repurposing like they have in other cities. The Palmolive building, which became the Playboy building. The Chicago Tribune is now going to go condos, which I want a unit in there.
Right, exactly.
What's some of the things that are happening with movements with urban living that you're seeing here that are unique or a standout architecturally?
Well, the interesting thing about what you just described, adaptive reuse, there's so many wonderful buildings in downtown Chicago, but they're sort of not designed in a way that would allow them to make them commercially successful anymore as office buildings. So making them residential was a smart thing to do, and more people have been either empty nesting or just moving to the city in general, so that the adaptive reuse of those buildings has been really successful.
When I do a lot of lectures on small space living, and they say in 30 years, 70% of the world's going to live in the city.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
Statistics.
So I'm going to move to the suburbs, I think.
You're going to move to the suburbs now? And then, Wayne, you also are a docent and a guide on the River Tour,
right.
Chicago Architectural Foundation River Tour.
Yes, one of the most enjoyable things that I do. It's a 90-minute river cruise. Our river here in Chicago separates us from most every other city in the sense that there's buildings on both sides of the river, and it goes right through the heart of downtown. So I talk about over 70 buildings in the course of a 90-minute cruise, and a good deal of those buildings are residential.
Right, and another thing we talked earlier that stands out compared to LA and other places is the amount of balconies.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that other cities didn't have as much as we do.
Yeah, you'd think with your weather.
Our weather, which is horrible in the wintertime.
It's been that way.
Maybe that's what it is. The weather is so bad during so many of the months. They put balconies out there so you can enjoy it.
Well, I think part of for urban living, what's smart is it's this indoor-outdoor experience.
Right.
That you don't feel cooped up inside of a unit.
Exactly.
So what are some of the new things you're seeing coming up developmentally, style-wise, that's exciting?
Well, one of the things I would describe is the new building that's going up right now called Vista. It's designed by Jeannie Gang from Studio Gang. It's going to be the third tallest building in the city when it's completed in a few years. But interestingly enough, the second tallest building is also a residential tower. So the three tallest buildings in the city, two of which are going to be residential. But that building is going to be spectacular.
Well, and she did Aqua, right?
Exactly.
And it's such a gorgeous statement of a building
right.
that way.
Those undulating balconies, and amazingly that building actually won a PETA award because she designed the surfaces enough so it would keep birds from flying into it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's pretty clever.
That's super smart.
So one of the things that's important about the river in the city of Chicago is because of the amount of residential things that are happening. There's planned developments. There's been a number of planned developments over the years. Illinois Center was originally designed as a commercial development.
Right.
Now we've got Lakeshore East, which is right along the lakefront, which is mostly residential. And now in the south branch of the Chicago River, there's an entire development called Riverline and South Bank, which is going to be over 3,600 residential units.
Wow. No, it's amazing how fast the city's growing. Every time I come and visit, there's stuff done and new cranes, and it's really phenomenal.
Right. And the Riverwalk too. Think about the Riverwalk in terms of connecting people to the riverfront as well, which is a great an element of that.
No, I've loved watching the progression of that over the years,
yeah.
and it's such a wonderful urban experience. What do you see too, like on materials and lifestyle? style for these new residential buildings? Because I'm kind of seeing a commonality, but with some twists, but I want to hear your opinion. You're a native.
One of the things I liked about the more playful buildings here when they were doing the postmodern movement were things like the building at 225 West Wacker Drive, which actually has two little towers at the top, which are very much like the bridge houses that we have all along the river.
Yeah.
So they're playing off the bridges in the design, and they prove the point by actually having a little tiny bridge that connects the two bridge houses, which I absolutely love.
See, I love stuff that reflects the city like that.
Yeah, exactly. And the modern buildings aren't doing that so much. I think they're just sort of creating these towers that are attractive, but they're not quite as compelling.
All right. Thank you for making the time in your busy schedule. No, I'm glad nobody's asked for an autograph during this. So
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Where can people find more information of some of the stuff we talked about?
Well, actually, I'm a docent with both the Chicago Architecture Foundation, and their address is architecture.org, and they offer over 80 different tours here in the city, not just on the river, but walking tours, Segway tours, knife and fork tours, a lot of different tours there. But I'm also a docent with the Frank Lloyd Wright Trust at franklloydwright.org.
Okay.
No, find information about both.
If you're lucky, request him. It's amazing. I've done several tours with him. You'll be incredibly impressed. So
Thanks, Christopher.
thank you, my friend.
Appreciate it.